Okay, thank you so much, Sue, and thank you for allowing me to speak to this wonderful group. I'm really excited to be here. As Sue said, I'm Amber Stilwell. I'm the Master Watershed Steward Coordinator. The program that I run goes across all 3 counties in Northwest PA, so Erie, Warren, and Crawford. And I also work for Pennsylvania Sea Grant as a coastal outreach specialist. So I try to merge the jobs whenever I can. I'm a 50-50 staff time. So that's kind of how that position is split up. And so I'm here in a Master Watershed Steward capacity this evening, but I would be happy to talk with you more about anything that Pennsylvania Sea Grant can do to further the mission of Audubon. And if anyone has any questions at the end, I will be super excited to answer them. So with that, I will start sharing my screen. And this is my dog, Chloe. And that is my other dog, Getty, that you hear in the background barking. Okay, so what we want to talk about tonight is the Penn State Extension Master Watershed Steward Program. And this is a pretty new volunteer program in this area, but it's actually been in existence in Pennsylvania for 10 years. And we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So all the pictures that you're going to see throughout the slides, I'm not going to touch on them individually the whole time, but they're all taken in the last couple of years of the program's existence. The program started when I was hired to Penn State Extension and Pennsylvania Sea Grant in August of 2021. And you'll see throughout the presentation how much we've grown and how many volunteers that we have been able to accrue. And here are some of the cool projects that we're working on. So Master Watershed Stewards are volunteers for Penn State Extension, and we get to work on all kinds of really amazing projects, including cleanups and tree plantings, macroinvertebrate identification, and even some nursery work. As you can see in this photo down here, my wonderful volunteer, Linda, is planting a live stick nursery with us, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So I just want to preface this with a little bit of background about Extension and what we do. So we were established in the land-grant universities were established in 1862 under the Morrill Act, and that essentially designated USDA federal dollars to land-grant universities to do research around farming and best practices for the land. And then the Hatch Act of 1887 established the agricultural experimental stations. Then finding out that there was all of this data and all of this information, but no real great way to communicate it to the public, the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 established cooperative extension in Pennsylvania. And cooperative extension, which we have since in Pennsylvania, we have dropped the cooperative, so now we go by Penn State Extension. We provide non-formal education and learning activities to people throughout the country. And in Pennsylvania's case, we have an extension program in every county, so we provide that education in every county. And the target audiences are farmers and residents of rural communities, but also people living in urban areas. So we really cover a lot of ground and connect with a lot of community members of all different kinds. We emphasize taking knowledge gained through research and education and bring it directly to people so that the people and the community members in these areas can create positive change. The way that our funding trickles down from the federal, state, and local level is exhibited here. So we start at the federal level with the USDA funding, and that trickles down into the land-grant universities. So that would be like Penn State as the land-grant university, or Ohio State, Michigan State, so those large-scale schools. And then state funding also attributes to Penn State Extension's funding. So there are state dollars that are allocated for Penn State Extension's funding as well. Local government also puts funding towards many extension programs. It's not the case in every program, and many programs are funded in a variety of ways. So a lot of the local dollars will come from either grants or the county budget. Penn State Extension is dedicated to delivering science-based information to people, businesses, and communities to help them address problems and take advantage of opportunities for improvement and innovation within their communities. We have an office in all 67 PA counties, which I think is a pretty amazing feat that we have accomplished. Extension covers a lot of different areas. I wasn't aware that 4-H was an extension program when I started here, so I was thrilled to learn that. And the Master Watershed under and Natural Resources. And the Master Gardener program, which you might be more familiar with, is under the Horticulture program. But Extension doesn't just focus on youth development and the environment. They also focus on healthy families, food safety, energy, and even animal systems. Oops. Penn State Extension has a lot of different volunteer programs. You see us here at the top, the Master Watershed Steward program, and then we have Master Gardeners, we have Master Well Owners, which are actually an extension of the Watershed Steward program. Penn State also has Forest Stewards, Master Food Preservers, and then 4-H volunteers as well. So to get kind of into the Master Watershed Steward program in a little more detail. It was launched in 2018 to increase capacity for watershed protection. And it really functions as a collaboration between Penn State Extension, county conservation districts, and local environmental organizations. The program started over here in the eastern half of the state, and in 10 years, it has expanded to 41 counties and has 860 volunteers. As of 2022, and that's when our last reporting year came to an end, so those are the numbers that I have available currently, the program in entirety has contributed over 1,300 volunteer hours. And our program specifically in Erie, Warren, has contributed 2,000 hours. And we actually in this area have the highest volunteer to hour ratio of any other program in Pennsylvania. And this is why we do this. Pennsylvania has 86,000 miles of rivers and streams, and over 29,000 of those miles are considered impaired. So there's a lot of work to do. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we're able to gain so many hours in such a short period of time, because there's no shortage of things to do and ways to protect and conserve the land and the watersheds around us. There are 4 major goals that we have as a program. The first is to educate and empower volunteers to protect environmental resource. So we really are providing the conservation education to volunteers so that they can become the look-to person in their community. Is to create partnerships and leverage resources. In doing this, we're able to enhance watershed restoration and awareness efforts by leaning on our partners, by getting more involved in the community and understanding exactly what the community needs are. Our third goal is to educate the community about water and natural resources. So quite frequently, our Master Watershed Stewards and our Master Gardeners and 4-H and other volunteers will take what they have learned in the classroom and through their volunteer work and bring that back to their community and provide educational programming. And our fourth goal is to advance on-the-ground restoration projects. So this is the really boots on the ground part of our mission. And what this is if there's a planting that needs to be done or a cleanup that needs to be done, we can bring the hands and the boots to actually do it. And that allows a lot of our partners to increase their capacity in a way that they couldn't do when they didn't have the volunteer resource. So there are lots of different types of volunteer opportunities. I'm just going to touch on 4 here and then 4 in the next slide. But as you're looking at these, and I want you to kind of view this through an Audubon lens. So think about how your efforts with Audubon can fit into these volunteer opportunities and how we can enhance the water quality to benefit the birds in our area, as well as the entire watershed. So a couple of the volunteer opportunities that we do are organizing educational events. So we will get people together to learn about a topic. We also assist with stream restoration projects. And one of the projects that we're working on is with Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. We'll be helping them do a lot of plantings this spring. We also help to sample streams for water quality. It's really valuable when you have trained volunteers that with that conservation education background that can step into the role of a volunteer water quality tester. And we're working on this project with the Pennsylvania Lake Erie Watershed Association, also known as PLUA, where they received a grant to do the water quality testing in 5 streams throughout Erie. And a lot of the master watershed stewards wanted to step up and assist with that stream monitoring as much as they possibly could. We also can conduct stream assessments. Mostly these are visual assessments. So the volunteers can be trained in a protocol called FISH, and the acronym is escaping me currently, but I can look that up for you towards the end if anyone's interested. But it's essentially a visual assessment of your stream, and you do it at timely increments throughout the year, and basically serve as a guide for how well your stream is functioning at a visual component. A couple different other opportunities that we work on. I mentioned before that we can do cleanups. So we can coordinate cleanups, we can join cleanups. This photo that you're seeing here is of a cleanup that we did in Erie, where that was along Ordock Road along the Bayfront. And we partnered with Pitt University's Veteran Suicide Prevention Program. They brought volunteers up from Pittsburgh. We brought volunteers from across all 3 counties. And together we cleaned up over 600 pounds of trash in one day. So that was a really wonderful first cleanup for us, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more. We can also work with municipal officials on stormwater issues. So one of the program partners that we have is on the county planning committee, and she is able to come to us with questions, and we're able to enforce any kind of background knowledge that we might have or community needs on where stormwater might be the best target in different places. We can also assist in planning habitat improvement projects. So we're working on a couple different projects with many different partners to do that kind of work currently. And then finally, we also teach adults and children about the environment. So like I said, one of our goals is to bring what we have learned to our community members. And we actually have 2 stewards that are running separate after school programs. They both are from the most recent spring training that occurred last year. And they got this information and education and decided that their new goal and their new project is going to be bringing that education to children. So they've started after school projects, after school clubs, excuse me, at 2 different schools in Erie so that they can accomplish those goals that they have developed. So if you're interested after hearing all that about becoming a master watershed steward, I'm going to walk you through a couple of the steps and how our training works. So the first thing that we like to have people do is tune into a county open house. And now we did have our open houses earlier in February, but you're getting the exact same presentation. There is also a recording available online, and I'll pop that link in the chat later so that you're able to access that if you're interested in watching it. The next thing that you can do if you want to apply is submit an application. And it's a simple form that you can do online. It will only take you about 5 or 10 minutes. And that will also be available on our website that I'll pop in the chat after we're done. And then last but not least, you sign up for an interview. So when you submit an application, I get an email that an application has come in, and I reach out and we would schedule an interview together. Interviews are just a simple, let's get to know each other. Why do you want to be a member of the program? What are your interests? And then we would move on to paperwork and the actual training itself. So once accepted into the program, there is a one-time fee of $125 that covers training expenses like your manual and speakers and name tags and things like that. However, we do have scholarships that are available, and that is a case-by-case basis that you and I would handle individually, and we would work out that scholarship for you. The training consists of 14 separate classes on Zoom. It's over 14 weeks, and every Wednesday evening we get together on Zoom and we learn about a new watershed topic. These are the Zoom platform is very, very nice because it's accessible. Anyone can tune in as long as you have a decent internet connection. But what I really like about it is that it's also flexible, because not everybody can commit to a single night of the week. Not everybody can attend every single class. And the best thing about it is that we offer those recordings as a backup. So if I even encourage stewards to, if they're getting kind of burnt out of Zoom after an hour and a half, I encourage them to log off and get back to their normal life, get away from the screen, and watch the rest of the recording later. The other great thing about it is that you can tune in from anywhere, like I said, as long as you have an internet connection. So we've had stewards go on vacation and then they'll pop in for their Wednesday evening training session, and they've got a beautiful beach behind them, and we all get to be jealous. So the crown jewel of the training is really the field sessions that we host. We do 3 full-day sessions. One of them occurs in each county, and these sessions are 8-hour days where we really get our hands dirty. We connect to the content that we're learning. We take those training topics and we put them into practice. And these sessions are so critical for the learning that we really do like to see them all attended. And maybe if you miss one, that's acceptable. If you have to miss more than one, obviously we're very flexible. So we would just work with you to do some makeup work on that. These are the training topics that we cover. I'm not going to talk about each of these individually, so I'll kind of let you absorb some of this information while I talk about the structure of our class. So we will cover a lot of different topics, and that's why the training is for 14 weeks. So the way that the training kind of is set up is on Wednesdays, you'll actually come into Zoom. It says 6:30 up here, but the time frame changed a little bit. It's actually from 6 p.m. to 8:30. And we have a half hour just to ourselves with our local county program. So all of the people from Erie, Warren, and Crawford would hop into Zoom with me for just 30 minutes. And during that 30-minute time, we have time to connect to each other. I like to do icebreakers so that we can get to know each other. We also talk about upcoming projects. And if anyone's struggling with anything, we talk about the content. And I also invite our partners to come and other Master Watershed stewards that are already trained to join the conversation and learn the new folks that are coming into the program. Then there is the statewide learning Zoom that occurs from 6:30 until 8:30. So that is where you would then hop out of our local Zoom into the statewide Zoom and listen to the speakers from all across Pennsylvania and even other parts of the country coming to talk about water. These are experts in their field that are bringing this information to volunteers. And very, very often it's outside of their own working hours, but you can really hear the passion coming through when they're talking about these topics. And they try to keep it as engaging as possible that you can be over Zoom. I want to go back and just touch on one other thing. So the training this year begins on March 8th and it goes until June 7th. And so if anyone at the end of this is really, really interested, I'm just going to encourage you to apply right away. Our deadline for applications has passed, but I do have a couple spots still open. So I can definitely still sneak you through if you get your application in early next week or over this weekend. So just keep that in mind, just putting a bug in your ear so that you can know to do that if you're really interested. So in the first year of your stewardship, there's a 50-hour volunteer requirement. And this isn't truly a 12-month year. So our training starts in March. And on March 8th, the day the training starts, you can start volunteering. And we actually have our program reporting year is not like a true calendar year. So we don't report hours until September, October of every year. So we like to see stewards get their 50 hours within it's almost a year and a half. So from March all the way until September of the next year. So you really have more like 18 months to accomplish these 50 hours. If anyone here is a Master Gardener and you are considering applying, Master Gardeners only have to achieve 25 hours. And the reason for that is really because you're already committing so much time to Penn State Extension. We don't need to overwhelm you and inundate you with another really big hour requirement. And really, we just want people to find joy in this program and do the things that they love and not become, burnt out or overwhelmed. We also do a group project within the first year. So this could consist of jumping on a pre-assigned project that I will put together, or you can have your own project and do a 5-minute presentation to our group, and our whole team our team across the 3 counties meets every 4th Tuesday of the month. So, and we meet in the evening, just like you guys. So if that's something that you're interested in, don't let that project setup kind of scare you. There is plenty of room for all kinds of ideas and all kinds of ways of presenting that information. We also have requirements in your succeeding years. So essentially, just to maintain your stewardship role, you have to commit 20 hours of volunteer service every year after your first 18 months. And to stay on top of current events and the current knowledge surrounding watersheds, we also have you do 10 hours of continuing education. So the 20 hours of volunteer work is much less than the 50, and most people don't find any issues getting the initial 50. Like I said, our program has the most hours per volunteer ratio in the entire state. So there's really no shortage of opportunities for you to get those hours and to jump into projects. The continuing education hours come from community presentations. So for example, if Audubon was hosting a presenter that was talking about something related to water or some kind of birds and water type of topic, then you could count that as a continuing education opportunity. And then I also present 4 opportunities at our monthly meetings. So every quarter we have a guest speaker that will provide continuing education as well. We also have leave of absence. So if you're ingrained in the program for a couple of years and something happens and you want to take a break, we allow people to take a leave of absence for up to 3 years. The only thing that you have to do during that time is maintain that continuing education component of 10 hours a year. And that's just so that you can stay kind of on top of things and stay involved a little bit. So a couple important things to keep in mind. If you become a Penn State volunteer, there are some things that we can't do. As with any organization large like Penn State, and I'm sure Audubon has its own rules surrounding volunteerism. As Penn State volunteers, we have to provide research-based scientific information. It should be Penn State approved, but it can be from other land-grant universities or other government sources, as long as it is a reputable, citable information source, we can utilize it. We cannot provide or cannot use the Master Watershed Steward title for profit or lobbying. And I like to say that we kind of walk that fine line between advocacy and education. We are, we're stewards of the environment, and we're here to educate the public in a way that helps them understand why decisions that they make are beneficial to the environment or how they could do something a little bit differently. But we're never here to advocate for change in a way that is pushy or seems kind of overwhelming or is kind of driving something. We're always, taking that standpoint of educating the public for the betterment of the environment. Penn State Extension volunteers record their hours in an online system, and that's also where I post volunteer opportunities. And what would be really interesting is if Audubon has any opportunities that are at all watershed related, that would be an opportunity that our current Master Watershed Stewards could get involved with if that is a suitable partnership. So we also ask that our volunteers record educational contacts, and that just means, anyone that you came in contact with, we have to just count how many participants are showing up to our events. And then we always have a lot of emails going around. So we ask that our volunteers review those emails and communicate with the coordinator as needed. So I essentially send a weekly email that has all of the volunteer opportunities in it. And I try to keep the emailing to a minimum. Some weeks are a little heavier than others. Oh, sorry about my dogs. So a lot of the opportunities that I talked about before, all of the opportunities count as as volunteer time. This is just a more concise list, but also things that I want to note on here is that anything that you might do with a watershed association or an EAC or environmental action committee, those would count towards volunteer hours. So we have this awesome opportunity to work with watershed associations across 3 different counties and bring the Penn State Extension resources to the table. If you're already involved in a watershed association, then you might want to consider signing up for this, and you'll probably get your hours very, very quickly. So the most important thing is to have fun. You get to meet new people with similar interests and different backgrounds. Right now, we have a lot of retired and working teachers. We have a tech ed professional, a financial consultant, a young student that just graduated that's interested in water quality. And we also have a gentleman who he walks the beach every day with his dog and picks up trash. So we have so many different backgrounds, but all coming together with this common thread of watershed protection and conservation. And that really creates this wonderful community where you can make new friends while you're also volunteering your time in something that matters to you. That brings me to the last point about, you get to volunteer based on your interests and availability. This program should bring you joy. I am a volunteer myself at an animal shelter, so I know the struggle of sometimes, you get really burnt out and there's a lot of things that you could do, but you also have, your normal life too. So I really encourage people to do things that they love and that bring them joy so that they want to maintain this and be in the program for many, many years. And you can see the big smile on Jesse's face here. Jesse was in our first training class in fall of 2021. And last summer, we did a field session in Warren County, and Jesse found a huge crayfish, and you can just see that he's thrilled about that. So I want to talk about a couple of the projects that we work on just very quickly here. One of the cool projects that we do in Crawford County is fish habitat construction with the Crawford County Conservation District. And this is a collaboration between the Conservation District, Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, and DCNR at Pymatooning Reservoir. And we were able to send a couple stewards down. You can see Greg, Ron, and Linda there, all decked out in their PPE. We were able to help them build these fish habitats that then get strategically sank in Pymatooning Reservoir on both the PA and Ohio sides in places where fish habitat is really necessary. So it was a great opportunity that we could provide some hands, and they were picking on me because I got to use a nail gun because as like a staffed employee, I'm allowed, but they weren't allowed to use a nail gun, unfortunately. And this is a couple more pictures from the cleanup that I mentioned previously. We had John and Denise, they went through the program. They're a couple and they went through it together, and they probably pulled most of that trash themselves. Every time I saw John, he had a big trash bag on his back and he had a smile on his face. That 600 pounds of trash, I think we really attribute to John and Denise, but the efforts of all of our volunteers that you can see in this photo here. And these are just a couple pictures of the water quality monitoring that we do with PLUA. This is a project that was funded through the Erie County Conservation District. They received a Seesaw grant to bring in ALARM, which is a program through Dickinson College. And it essentially is built to teach volunteers how to take water quality samples and how to do some pretty simple but really effective monitoring. And there are stream teams on each of the 5 streams that they're testing. And this is Jean, she's doing some of the testing. They like to get their samples from Scott Run and then head up to McDonald's on 12th Street or on Peninsula Drive and do their water quality testing there with a hot cup of coffee and a muffin. We also have 3 live stake nurseries across our counties. So live stake nurseries are the conservation gift that keeps on giving. They are native shrubs that are planted along a riparian zone, so along a waterway, or in some type of very critical watershed. And as those shrubs grow and mature, we can take cuttings from them and use those cuttings in future restoration projects. You can literally stick the cutting into the ground. That's why it's called staking, and along a stream. And if you do it properly, you can form a really effective root connection that prevents erosion. So through the help of many, many partners and many, many volunteers and funding through Growing Greener grants, we were able to establish a nursery at the Erie County Conservation District at the property that is owned by the Lake Erie Arboretum at Frontier, but it's not at Frontier Park. It is along the bayfront at the foot of Cranberry Avenue, and also one in Warren County. It's at a private property, but this is a cornerstone project for the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. The gentleman that owns this property is very invested in conservation efforts, and the erosion along Broken Straw Creek is pretty bad. So he's really heavily interested in utilizing that live stake nursery for the future of his property and other efforts that Western Pennsylvania Conservancy is working on in the same location. We also do tree tending for Western Pennsylvania Conservancy throughout the French Creek watershed. So this is Amy. She is also a steward from the fall class of 2021. And the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy came to us and said, we have hundreds of tree tubes that need to be checked. So I don't know if you're familiar with tree tubes, but they are placed around a sapling to prevent deer browse and allow the tree to mature to a height where it can withstand predators and deer as predators. And Amy said, I can do that. So she, in one summer, checked hundreds and hundreds of tree tubes, and her goal was to determine if the saplings were still alive, report back if any had died off, and remove the tree tube around the mature trees if they no longer needed it. We also are working with the Conservation District in Crawford County on some aquatic habitat maintenance at several of their research plots along Tamarack Lake. So you can see my volunteers here with handfuls of reed canary grass, which is an invasive grass species. Their purpose is to adopt these plots and remove the invasive species that are crowding out these native plants. And if those native plants can successfully thrive in that ecosystem, then they're going to use those plants in future restoration projects at Tamarack. We also host really fun community events like Tap Talks. So this is a partnership with a local brewery or a winery, and we bring in a guest speaker. In this case, I was the guest speaker for our very first Tap Talk at Erie Brewing Company. I came with my Sea Grant hat on as an invasive species specialist and talked about aquatic invasive species. If you're familiar with Erie Brewing Company, they have a aquatic invasive species draft line, which was started with as a collaboration with Pennsylvania Sea Grant. So it was a natural fit for us to just do that as our very first Tap Talk. Even though we hosted it on Cinco de Mayo of last year, it was a packed room. So it was a very popular event, and we're looking forward to having many more. And then another example of a community education project that we do is Get Outside with Extension. We brought in speakers from DCNR and Penn State Extension that are both professional foresters, and they were able to walk through the Lake Erie Arboretum with us and talk about different invasive species, talk about how important it is to recreate in the ecosystems that we love in a beneficial way, in a way that doesn't harm the environment. And then we do a lot of celebrating. Volunteers work really hard and they deserve to be celebrated. So we host at least 2 celebrations a year. This one was hosted in one of the volunteers' backyard. She lives along French Creek, so she graciously offered to host us for a potluck. And at that time, I gave a very short, but probably lengthier than I had hoped, speech about how wonderful they are, and handed out training certificates and badges if they had reached the 50-hour mark. They also received receive milestone achievements for different milestone hours, like 100, 150 hours, 200 hours, and so on and so forth. We also always do a holiday celebration, and then there are lots of other celebrations in between. Another example is we paired a continuing education with a get-together. So one of our volunteers, he runs the Wesleyville Conservation Club, and they have a raceway with a fish hatchery. And so he gave us a tour of the fish hatchery, which is conveniently located next to Presque Isle Wine. So we did a wine tasting after and had a little meeting with some of our partners and just really got together as a group. So these are just a couple of the groups that we're currently supporting. This is by no means a concise list. These are just the ones that we really work with the most right now. And I mentioned lots of these, but I want to point out some that I didn't mention. So Weed Warriors is a program through the Regional Science Consortium, which is also located at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. And they meet every Tuesday. And their focus is removing invasive species from Presque Isle. So a lot of our Master Watershed Stewards have joined the Weed Warriors. And if you're interested in doing Weed Warriors, I highly recommend that you reach out because it's a wonderful program. You can reach out to Jen Salem. She's the one that coordinates that program out of the RSC. We also do a lot of work with Asbury Woods. So the most notable example is at the Children's Water Festival. None of our volunteers felt super confident to host a technical program, but what they could do was walk students from program to program and interact with them in between and really get to the root of investing them in watershed education. So they were able to kind of fill those gaps and foster that interest in between these projects that the students were doing. And this is a list of our program partners. This is also not a concise list. We're missing just a couple that have come on recently. But you can see the breadth of our program. We have a lot of partners, and there are a lot of people that I have just not had a chance to reach out to yet. I'm always looking for program partners and project examples. So if you have any suggestions of people that are not on this list, I am all ears. And then I wanted to just quickly touch on our program supporters, financial supporters. So we are supported financially through Penn State Extension, Pennsylvania Sea Grant, as well as the Growing Greener grant from DEP. And we also have county support in Warren County, where they have funded a portion of our program. And I want to end today with a volunteer's testimony. So this is Bethany. She is a Master Watershed Steward spring trainee from 2022, sorry. And she provided me with such a wonderful piece of testimony that I have really enjoyed sharing it. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I'm just going to read you parts of it. Bethany says, becoming a Master Watershed Steward has given me hope. It was the people I met who inspired me with their dedication, passion, and creativity. Through the program, I honed in on my passion for working with kids, helping them form lasting connections to the natural world. And now I've started an after-school club at a local elementary school to do just that. And this is a picture of Bethany really enjoying one of her first field sessions. So with that, I thank you so very much for inviting me to speak tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I will also pop those links into the chat. I'm going to leave this screen up for a moment. If you're interested in applying right now, you can actually take out your smartphone, open the camera icon, and then scan that with your camera, and it will take you to the website where you can submit your application if you're interested in doing that right now. And then, Sue, I will take any questions.
Wow, Amber, that was really interesting. I had no idea how much Master Watershed programs did around the area, really. So if people wanted to unmute themselves, they can do that. Or if they want to put a question in the chat. See, I have a bunch of questions myself, and I'm not sure you can answer them. You had mentioned at the start that there were 5 creeks in Erie, or 5 streams in Erie County that were being monitored. Off the top of your head, do you know which ones they were?
I can try to remember at least most of them. I know Scott Run, 12 mile,
okay.
6 mile. I don't want to give you a wrong answer, so I can look up what those streams are, and then I can email that to you.
Okay, I'm just curious. Yeah. In your background, do you have any idea what is causing a lot of impairment of that, 80,000 miles of creeks in Pennsylvania?
That is a great question, and the answer is probably long and multifaceted. The impairments can be from all kinds of different issues. That could be issues on the land, it could be direct pollution, it could be non-point source pollution, it could be chemicals, it could be leaking septic tanks. If you look through DEP's criteria for considering a stream impaired, there's a variety of different reasons for that. A lot of those impairments are based on biological life. So if they see a stream that is beginning to degrade, they will list it as impaired when it degrades to a certain point. And that reason for that degradation is really kind of, I don't know. I could speak to some of the issues in Erie, but across the state, it could be a high variety of reasons.
Okay. Well, Prescott Audubon is currently offering scholarships for area educators to go to Hog Island in Maine to learn about environmental education. And I would really love to have our organization sponsor people who wanted to apply to your program. Of course, I'd have to bring it up before the board, but I was wondering when, not the spring session, because it's probably too late to talk to the board about that, but do you have 2 sessions a year, or is it just in the spring that you offer it?
We only offer it in the spring as of now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but I think that would be wonderful. And if that's approved, I would absolutely welcome that.
Okay. All right. I'll bring it to the board. And one last question too. We're lucky to own 3 we call wildlife sanctuaries, and one of them is in Crawford County and 2 are in Erie. And the one in Crawford County has in the past been used as unfortunately, a dumping ground for garbage. It was the summer of 2020, I think, that somebody had dumped all kinds of stuff over the bank into the creek below, and just like probably 20 garbage bags full of stuff. And would we, if something like that ever happened again, would your volunteers be able to help do a stream cleanup if that happens again, which I hope it doesn't, but
yeah, absolutely. And I know that the Pittsburgh crew, they want to do another cleanup this year, and they like a challenge. The reason that we did Ordock Road is because they asked me to find a challenging spot. And so I reached out to the county planning department and I asked for the most challenging spot in Erie. And boy, did they deliver. So yes, we would love to do that. We can get more bodies and more boots on the ground so that we could clean that up.
okay. That's good to know. Well, I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any questions here. Does anybody have any questions? You want to just unmute yourself?
I'm also going to pop these links in as people are
good.
thinking.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I see a comment from Brian. So thank you, Brian. He says an invitation to partner with Edinburgh Lake Watershed Association will be in touch. That sounds great. I would love to hear from you, Brian, and I will put my email in here so that you have it. So I'm popping in now our website, as well as a direct link to the application. And then I will put in my email after that.
Okay.
Okay, I have another message in here. I'm just trying to take it in. Okay, we tried to educate our church congregation members. This is a tough sell, sharing information. We'll check you out. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, thank you. I will put my email in here. I think I was just messaging Brian. So sorry, Brian. You got bombed with a bunch of different stuff. So yes, any collaboration that anyone wants to work on, send me an email or give me a phone call, and I would be more than happy to work on that, or do a presentation for your group, or really whatever kind of support that you need in the community that's water related, we can absolutely make something work.
Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Actually, I just popped in to let Sue know there's something with your chat. I tried to send my comment to the whole group, but it only lets me direct message Amber. It doesn't allow me to send the chat message to the whole group. So there may be other people that are trying to get questions in that aren't able to.
Okay. And well, okay. You have any idea how I can fix that?
I have no idea, but I thought you should know.
Okay.
That's pretty funny.
I think that's why Amber tried to put all those links out, and then they
Yeah.
came right to me and not to the whole group.
Okay, but now I do see Amber's links. They are in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? Can somebody do a test message to the chat? Just send something to the chat and see if it pops up to everybody.
Oh, I got a direct one again.
Huh.
Pesticide and herbicide use is one of the concerns for property owners. Yes, absolutely. We can, if that's a concern that you want to kind of tackle in your community, we can bring in Pest Ed from Penn State Extension and do a collaborative program.
Okay.
I'm wondering if to do the everyone, if you hit the, like, do you have a drop down that says to and then everyone?
Okay, I got one from Carolyn. It was to me, a direct message about a security feature, you know, and I'm looking in the security section here, and I do have chat enabled, so I'm not sure why it's not working.
That's okay. I don't mind reading them.
Okay.
C is for Sue or Sue, Amber, or Tim.
Oh, the hosts.
Oh,
And it,
interesting.
know,
Okay, all right.
it shows direct message beside your all's name, and there's seems to be no way to get that
Huh.
off.
You know what? I'll bet you any money when I was doing changing some of the settings for this membership program, because you know we were bombed last time. I'll bet you I'd have to go back into my account settings and change that. I can't do it from the meeting here. So I guess if you have questions, if you want to direct them to Amber and she can read the questions to us all and then answer them.
It's weird.
Blame it on me. I'll take the responsibility.
That's not a problem. Do you want me to talk about the Lake Erie Environmental
Yes.
Forum?
Yes, if you would.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so while you're all thinking about questions and trying to figure out chat, Sue had asked me to talk a little bit about the Lake Erie Environmental Forum. So as part of my duties for Pennsylvania Sea Grant, I work with the DEP to host the Pennsylvania Lake Erie Environmental Forum, also known as PA LEAF. So we love our acronyms. So this Tuesday, February 21st, our focus is on education and volunteerism in Pennsylvania. We have invited guest speakers from across the state to talk about volunteer programs. A lot of those programs are through Penn State Extension. So someone will be talking about the Master Watershed program, but we also have people talking about Master Gardeners, 4-H, and Extension as a whole, and how you can get involved in different ways. We also have invited educators who are experts, both formal and non-formal, in providing accessible STEM education in the classroom. So science, technology, engineering, and math. And one of the guest speakers will be from the IU, the intermediate unit. And she will be talking a little bit about how the new education, the new science education standards in Pennsylvania, they're also known as STEELS, and I don't know what that acronym stands for, I apologize, but it's STEELS, and they'll be talking a little bit about how to interject STEELS into your classroom. We also have two teachers from the School District of Philadelphia joining us. They'll be talking about meaningful watershed education experiences, or MWEs, and how they have taken MWEs to a new level and created a really accessible learning content for all kinds of audiences and of all different learning abilities. We'll also hear from the Regional Science Consortium to talk about all of the wonderful projects that they do with K through 12 students and gifted education in the Erie community, but in all of their regional program partners. So if anyone's interested in attending that occurs, I'm going to drop that in the chat so you can register. You do have to register in order to receive the Zoom link, but it's totally free. The webinar will be from 3 p.m. to 5:30. So yeah, I hope that some of you consider coming. It's going to be, I think, a really good one.
Thanks, Amber. Okay.
Yeah.
Looks like your link is there. One new message. That might be it.
I see it. I have a message from Pat.
Okay. All right.
Pat says that he noticed beaver activity in Cascade Creek and Frontier Park and wondering how that affects the creek. Pat, that is a fantastic observation, and I actually have a story for you. So if you're not familiar with Frontier Park, there are a lot of beautiful trees there. And in the last year, there has been some beaver activity. And although beavers are incredible animals, they do cause a lot of damage. So what Pat has noticed is all of the younger trees and even some of the more mature ones, including a serviceberry that was cut down by the beavers. So that does affect the watershed in different ways. One good thing that it does is it actually provides some wooded habitat to the water. So it allows debris to go back into the water from the beavers pulling it in. But more likely it's going to cause some erosion problems. But very lucky for us, the people that work there are fantastic at what they do. So they have already been on top of it. They will be reinstalling as many trees as they can and really building up that buffer again. They have successfully trapped out the beavers humanely and released them on game lands far, far away so that they will not be coming back to disturb the location. And hopefully we don't lose any more serviceberry trees.
That's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah, our live stake nursery is so close to there. It's right along Cascade Creek. And so I was checking it all the time to make sure that the beavers didn't get those like really young, tender trees. But luckily they survived the beaver invasion of Cascade Creek.
We go hiking a lot around Eaton Reservoir in Northeast Township. And it's just, to me, amazing how big of a tree that they cut down successfully. And I know it's softwood, but still, it's just a little beaver going to a tree that's a 12-inch diameter. It makes me stop and look and wonder.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, let me check the chat from my end. Okay, nothing more there. Anybody more have any questions yet directly for Amber? And no. I guess not. Well, thanks very, very much, Amber. Again, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else has too. It's really nice to know what a resource we have right in our community. And I was pretty much unaware of what you all accomplished. So thanks again for the presentation. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet in person sometime out hiking,
Yeah.
right on a stream bed.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thank you again for having me. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And thank you all so much for your time. And yeah, any way that anyone wants to reach out, you know how to get a hold of me. So I look forward to more partnerships.
Okay, great. Thanks again.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night, everybody.